Hello and welcome to another episode of Father and Joe. I'm Joe Rockey here with Father Boniface Hicks. And in our last episode, we talked about building a deeper relationship to God into the faith. And the homework assignment was to think about what that change would have taken place. What has the faith actually done for you? And in the last episode, we talked about how having those personal conversations about what happened to you and how that can really be a launching point into inviting others into the faith. You know, so many times we have this mentality that, hey, other people just watch me, they'll get me by the osmosis, and we'll go from there. And unfortunately, that is really just not true. For better or worse, most people are so confounded into their own bubble, inside their own mind, inside their own body, that they are not really paying attention to you. And I think that's true when we look at this, no matter what relationship it is. I'm pretty sure that's a human nature thing because, hey, we're inside our own bodies, we're inside our own minds, etc. And what I would like to do today is to focus upon a different element from the conversation we started last week, which was opening ourselves up and talking to others about the faith, which is when we broach someone, what is the way in which we talk to them that is going to have them actually understand how this impacts me? Like the benefit that I got out of this is something you could receive as well. This isn't, hey, I got super lucky and I'm the one in a million and this happened to, but this is an abundant font that will happen for you. You know, like we all know right now, if I offer someone a Coke, what it's going to taste like. It's going to taste like the exact same Coke that was in the can I had. But for some reason, we don't believe that the same love and power of God will be the exact same for someone else. And I think that is a question worth pondering, and that's what I wanted to kick today's episode off about.
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. The benefits of believing are again what we're aiming at and what the Lord promises us is a trajectory towards the perfection of love. And so the benefits of believing are going to be ordered toward my capacity to love and to grow in love. That's going to have a certain positive benefit for one person. You know, if my marriage was kind of a wreck or I was struggling in relationship problems, then as I began to practice Christianity and that enlightened, helped me to notice the areas that I'm pretty self-centered, I'm proud, I'm vain, I am self-indulgent, and I have some attitudes and approaches that are destructive and destroy relationships, then my conversion may really help my marriage in a particular way, may help me to love more fully and more freely. And so that's going to be a benefit for one person. Another person may be in a marriage where the partner in the marriage is kind of a mess, and even growing in Christianity is not going to help that person's marriage. You know, so anyway, there's a certain superficial way that we have to be careful not to make claims that are that are overshooting it. Being Christian may or may not help your marriage. It depends on what your marriage problems are. You know, likewise, being Christian may or may not help your business. If your business was hindered by the fact that you put money in the highest place and you were trying to maximize profit at every cost, then becoming Christian could really help your business, because as you start to honor your employees and as you start to treat your clients better and as you develop deeper relationships, that's going to have a positive impact on your business. If your business is failing because the housing market in Pittsburgh has dried up and there's no houses to buy and sell, well, then becoming Christian is probably not going to help your business in that sense. So anyway, keeping in mind what Christianity actually helps us to grow in, which is to grow in love, to be able to grow in relationship, to grow in humility. We grow in virtue, in courage and prudence. We are able to discern the good better. And then we know that because the whole of creation is ordered to the Christian principle, through the word, through Christ, all things were made. And so the more we become like Christ, the more we become harmonized with the way that things work. And so that's why having business practices that are in accord with Christianity are going to be more naturally fruitful than having business practices that are contrary to Christianity, Christian principles, Christian morality. So anyway, it depends a little bit in terms of those kinds of effects. But the other thing is, as we practice Christian faith and that becomes more a part of us, we're going to have more lasting peace, interior peace. And so it's not going to be an immediate removal of all stressful things in our lives. We may have buried, it's like if you drove yourself into a pit, or you got yourself into prison or something like that, there are going to be some external stressors that remain even after you start following Christ. But as many prisoners have discovered, Christianity certainly has a good footprint in prisons. You're going to be able to live out those hard circumstances with greater peace and hope, with love and joy than you could have without Christ. And so we really focus on the interior transformation. In some settings, the interior transformation also leads to a transformation of our circumstances. And then if we get to know the person we're talking to, we might be able to propose what some of the external transformations will be based on what we know the internal transformation will be, and the benefits that they could find from following Christ.
So yeah, there's even more to that. So I do recognize and appreciate you say that there are some external factors that you just can't overcome. But the one thing I'm going to push back a little bit on here, Father, is someone who's built 29 businesses, and some at the absolute worst times when you look at the time you would have wanted to start this business versus external circumstances versus reality, is that practicing the faith brings out just different thoughts that come to your mind in different situations. It's part of what will guide your brain and your thought processes in a way that kind of makes the exercise I had everyone do last week really difficult, because it's really kind of hard to see, well, what is it that living my faith actually did and changed? Because I don't know what my thought process would have been had I not been, practicing the faith and having a relationship with Jesus. And to give an example from my homework of this was that, I had a consulting client, and, it was a mess. Like, AI was killing this business. Like, there was no way around it. The business was perfect in the 90s. It was when it was booming, it was thriving, but now AI can do it for basically free. So it's like, oh, how are we going to make this business work? And I said something that I'm sure stemmed from conversations with you, and thinking about podcasts with you and topics while in Mass and having the Eucharist. I said basically a simple fact that I've ever since said this 4 years ago has been proved more and more correctly, and I use it a lot, which is, and this is about a business context, obviously, but every business is defined by two questions, and only two questions. I don't care what your business is. It comes down to these two questions. What is the business's relationship with the prospect/clients? And what is the business's relationship with the employees? And everything you just said in your answer in terms of how are you treating the clients, how are you treating the employees, comes down to that. Because of any point in your business, it's okay, but, or some other variant of a negative term, your business is going to die. It's just a matter of when. And it doesn't matter what the external circumstances are. I mean, you could be in the absolute perfect situation, location, outside forces, etc. But if you are failing at one of those two questions, the business's relationship with the employees or the business's relationship with the prospects/clients, your business won't work. And when you talk about that, that's your business's, again, relationships perfection is love. And where do you learn that better than anywhere else, which is the relationship with God? Because God is love. That's explicitly said in the Bible. So I bring this up as one of the examples that I have of how the faith has benefited me and how it's benefited my clients as a result. And I think that that's something to take in mind. Yes, I certainly recognize that there's still going to be pain. You're still going to be in prison for what you did wrong. You're still going to be feeling, all of these other issues. And it's not a magic pill that erases the past. That no one's trying to claim that. But what it does is guide and shape your future in ways that are immeasurable. And that's why I keep coming back and recording these episodes with you, Father, and why I believe that sharing God is an incredibly important and powerful tool, because I never would have had a thought like that of equating a business's success to strictly two relationships had I not been doing this podcast and had all these conversations with you throughout the years. And I think that that's an incredibly, that might be like the testament answer to the homework equation we gave. And I'm sure that there's other examples that people can have personally of how it happened to them, and reflecting upon it make a big difference. And I can tell you directly, it's made a huge difference for my clients who never heard anything like that before and implement it into their world. So that is, proof in the pudding type thing. And I just wanted to share that, because I think that it's something we all should know. There's ramifications and really good positive benefits from doing this. So, Father, I apologize for just kind of going on a personal side there, but I want to give you the floor back, as we got about 7 minutes or so to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, no, I love everything you said, and I love the very concrete impact that it had for you and your business, your understanding around business, and then the way that you treat people, those relationships, and then that's really everything. We have a way of, business is in the service of relationships, not vice versa. And so we have a way of absolutizing the wrong things a lot of times. And to keep the human person at the center is something that our faith really reinforces. And so having that worldview that comes to us in our Christian faith really makes a difference in how we run a business, or how we manage a family, or how we go about our daily lives. So it really matters. So that's the kind of thing to pay attention to. A lot of times we hear in people's faith testimonies, there's a certain dramatic transformation of people who are doing somewhat destructive things, sort of obviously destructive things, and then meeting Jesus. And what does that mean? That's worth reflecting on a little bit. It's not just as Pope Benedict famously said, it's not a lofty idea or an ethical decision, but an encounter with a person, with an event that gives life a new horizon and a definitive direction. And that's what the encounter with Christ, which is not something that we can just decide either. It's not like, oh, I'm going to encounter Christ today. Now, again, not to discourage anybody from wanting to encounter him and seeking to do that and making an effort in that direction. That certainly is helpful and necessary. And a lot of times we can lead others to that kind of prayer. If you love me, show me. And just to ask the Lord to reveal his love to us. But that really is the essence of the encounter, is an encounter with infinite and unconditional love. And that place that we receive that infinite and unconditional love is going to define sort of what transforms in us. If there's a place in us that's very broken and hurting, feels inadequate and insecure, maybe has made terrible decisions about addictive behaviors or other destructive behaviors, and then we feel seen and known and loved by God all the same. That has a way of changing everything. It gives us freedom, a kind of permission and encouragement, strength to let go of whatever destructive behaviors we might be repeating, and that really sets us free in a way that can change our lives, can give us a new beginning. If we're, again, ways that I said earlier and you reinforced, in our family, in our business, if we're embracing a worldview that's off, like money is the most important thing, or success is the most important thing, or pleasure is the most important thing, then that encounter with Christ, where we actually experience that divine love, we know straight up love is the most important thing. I don't just know that as a concept. I can back it up as a concept. I can, sort of demonstrate it philosophically, but I know it because I encountered it. That's the kind of transforming impact that meeting Christ and following Christ has. And then I start to reorder my life according to that principle. Love is the most important thing. And that begins to change everything. So anyway, just to say that what that encounter with Christ entails, not just coming to a conclusion or making a decision, but really encountering a person, an event that changes, expands our horizon, and sets a definitive direction that's different from the one that we were in before that.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. And one thing to put out there, and I think this is probably the homework assignment to give, is what are you doing to put yourself in a situation to go down that road of opening yourself up to love and presenting love? And I think that just putting some thought into that, after you listen to this podcast and in your drive home, and just, putting some thought of, how am I showing love today? How am I receiving love from those who are trying to give it to me? And I think what we'll oftentimes find is that the reality is different than our perceptions. And just looking at that and trying to open up our minds to what actually is being observed from others, and both giving and receiving love, would be a really powerful and good practice to do as we go through this week. So we thank everyone for listening with us, and we will be with you again next week.